Hi everyone, welcome to the Daily Dollar. So as you may have heard, the Chevy Bolt is making a comeback already, after only being dead for a handful of months, and being resurrected for the third time now. GM really can't seem to decide whether they love or hate this car. I'm gonna be honest, I've never really been a fan of the name. I think all the E's and the electric puns have been a bit annoying, to be honest. Just name the car something normal. It doesn't have to say that it's electric. The only one I kinda liked was the F-150 Lightning. Primarily because at least the Lightning part is not the actual name of the truck, it's an F-150, it's just the Lightning edition. But I'm getting sidetracked here, so back to the Chevy Bolt. While I'm not a fan of the name, I must say I am a fan of the car. I think a lot of the EV industry has been focusing on this ultimate luxury, ultimate range type of electric vehicle. But a lot of people just want a commuter that can get them to work and back. And the second generation Bolt was a great option to do that. The smaller EV version was definitely the dorky kind of commuter vehicle, or a golf cart with doors as some have called it, and the larger EUV was pretty much the same exact thing except a bit more stylish. And being only one of two EVs, along with the Leaf, starting in the $20,000 to $30,000 price range, it was basically the ideal entry-level electric vehicle. So before we get into why the Bolt is being resurrected, let's kind of ask a question of why did it die to begin with? And the primary reason is because everyone assumes that the Bolt was not profitable, while GM has never actually confirmed this, because of the bought-off-the-shelf nature of the Chevy Bolt, along with inflation and an increase in material and labor costs. Most analysts expected that they were selling them at a loss. The Chevy Bolt was basically GM saying, yes, we can do this EV thing, and we are capable of rivaling Tesla, with many critics and shareholders alike complaining that GM was taking too long to switch, or even getting started. And despite GM already working on the Ultium battery at the time, the Chevy Bolt did not have it, which means it was basically completely relying on LG's battery technology. And unfortunately for General Motors, LG has the highest spontaneous combustion rate of any of the battery cell manufacturers, which resulted in the second generation Bolt being recalled twice in its short lifetime. So, will this be a resurrection of the Gen 2 version of the Chevy Bolt, or will this be technically the third generation? While the design may reflect the Generation 2 version, I suspect that overall it will be pretty much its own standalone Gen 3. The reason this will be a brand new generation, instead of a resurrection of the Gen 2, is because of a lot of GM announcements lately, along with not wanting to repeat the same mistakes. So, what are the lessons that GM learned? When the Chevy Bolt was released, GM wasn't done working on its Ultium battery architecture. While the Ultium still uses LG battery cells, GM spent a lot more time and energy refining the battery pack and the software to go along with it. Because battery packs are more than just the battery cells within them. It's how you integrate them, and it's the software you power them with. That's how Tesla has been able to fix battery issues with over-the-air updates, especially for how the power system handles charging. Besides their increased focus on battery architecture, GM also learned that EVs at scale is a lot more difficult than they may have initially thought. The supply chain is still under immense growing pains, and getting all the materials and components you need is a lot harder than they probably initially thought, especially compared to the traditional auto industry. On top of that, GM learned that people are very eager for an affordable commuter EV. And let's be honest, American auto manufacturers have not focused on the small, commuter, affordable car in a very long time. Hardly any of them even make any actual sedans anymore, completely forfeiting that market to Toyota and Honda. However, during the electrification of the industry, the US automakers may reconsider about abandoning the consumer entry-level vehicle. So if they learned so much from the Chevy Bolt, why are they bringing it back just months after canceling it? Well, for starters, because this was GM's first mass-market electric vehicle, it shows not only to their customers but to shareholders that they are committed to electrification. After all, a lot of people paid $30,000 just for GM to cut the car model a few months later. And because the only other electric vehicle they have right now is the Hummer EV and the very newly released Chevy EV Blazer, and while range anxiety is definitely a real phenomenon, not everyone actually has it. And not everyone actually wants such a large, heavy battery and a large, expensive vehicle. And in one of their most recent press releases, GM straight up said why they're bringing back the Chevy Bolt. Apparently, from their own internal numbers, 80% of Chevy Bolt owners stayed within GM. Not really sure how they calculated that, since the car was only about 3 years old when they cut it. And a metric I believe a little bit more is that 70% of Bolt purchases traded in a non-GM vehicle, aka stealing market share. And those are from GM's own words. I'm not sure if they haven't collected that data before they canceled the Bolt, or they just figured that as many redesigns as they're going to do, it's just easier to cancel it and then bring it back later. But who knows, let me know if you guys know anything more about the situation. And speaking of the future Gen 3 Bolt, it's stated for a comeback in 2025, and will be using GM's Ultium battery platform. This will finally synchronize all of GM's EVs under a single architecture. And while this is not confirmed by GM, it is likely to remain using LG's battery cells for the foreseeable future. It has been rumored that GM is in talks with other manufacturers, but as of now there's no concrete evidence GM is switching battery cell manufacturers. But with a year until the new model releases, that is subject to change. The switch to the Ultium battery platform should cause an increase in power density, therefore range, in the Chevy Bolt, hopefully also associated with some cost reductions. But one of the other most critical new features that it is likely to have is the next generation Bolt is likely to be using the NACS standard that has been pioneered by Tesla, completely changing the charging situation for all of General Motors vehicles. One of the things that's more unclear about the 2025 model is whether it will be both the EV and the EUV returning, or will it just be one of them? Aesthetically, the EUV would line up more with GM's other offerings, but the EV would probably be the most affordable, so it depends on what they're going for here. Unless they happen to do the same exact thing and bring both back. There will likely also be a redesign because of the switch to the Ultium platform. Because of this changing literally the foundation of the vehicle, it will likely cause a redesign of either the wheelbase or the entirety of the vehicle. Until GM gives us more insights on their expectations, all of this is speculation. Speaking about the rest of the electric lineup, right now it's just the Hummer EV, which is obviously a high-cost, low-production run model. That being said, General Motors is pretty aggressive with expanding the fleet, with the Silverado, Blazer, and Equinox all supposed to be in production within a year. And I really hope they stop putting EV in everything's name. Probably unlikely as long as they're still producing both a combustion engine and an electric version. Hopefully this is just a phase, like the early internet. So that's most of what I have to say about the return of the Chevy Bolt. I'm glad to see it coming back. I hope it gets a redesign. I'm excited to see how the new Ultium battery system works. I hope they actually make money on this one. And I hope they don't kill it again shortly after making it. But with GM basically avoiding hybrid platforms, they really need to get the EV right. And they need to do it before the market becomes even more crowded and competitive. I hope the Ultium battery platform is cost productive to make, making them affordable, reliable, and less likely to catch on fire. Because those early Chevy Bolt recalls is actually why I pretty much don't own one today. I was shopping for a new vehicle during that time, and I didn't trust that GM had the expertise yet to manage that. So as GM tries to defend its market share in the United States, and prove that it's going to be a competitive EV player going forward, it needs to produce an affordable EV along with the luxury models, because it is likely the first mass-produced affordable electric car will dominate market share for years. So it could be imperative to GM's success that they can get an affordable model back on the lots before the rumored Tesla Model 2 dominates the market share in the budget commuter space. But those are just my thoughts on the industry overall. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I enjoy reading all of your comments. And as always, if you like the content we make, please like, subscribe, and keep watching The Daily Dollar.